you probably have access to more information than any generation in human history. Yet, some researchers believe our ability to think, to remember, and to concentrate may be moving in the opposite direction. For decades, intelligence test scores followed a remarkably consistent pattern. Across much of the 20th century, each new generation scored higher than the last, a trend known as the Flynn Effect. But then, something unexpected happened. In several developed countries, that steady rise began to slow, then stall, and in some cases, reverse. At first glance, it doesn't seem to make sense. How can generations with instant access to the world's knowledge perform differently on cognitive measures than people who grew up without the internet, without smartphones, or even personal computers? The data suggests something far more complex than a simple rise or fall in intelligence. It points instead to a shift in how we interact with information, how we remember, how we focus, how we solve problems. You'll start to notice it in ordinary moments. Reaching for your phone to get directions on a road you've driven dozens of times. Searching for something you almost remembered. Letting algorithms decide what you watch, what you read, and even what deserves your attention. And that's where this story changes. Because the biggest shift isn't happening inside your devices. It's happening inside the habits those devices are quietly shaping every single day. For most of the 20th century, intelligence researchers kept seeing the same result. Across many countries, average IQ scores steadily increased from one generation to the next. The pattern became so consistent that it earned its own name, the Flynn Effect, named after researcher James Flynn, who helped document the trend across the world. That discovery raised an important question. People weren't becoming genetically smarter in just a few decades. That simply isn't how evolution works. So researchers looked somewhere else. They turned their attention to the environment. As societies modernized, daily life began placing different demands on the brain. More children stayed in school. Information became easier to access. Work gradually shifted toward analysis instead of repetition, and everyday life increasingly rewarded abstract thinking. For years, the pattern remained remarkably consistent. Then, new evidence began to emerge. Studies from countries, including Norway, Denmark, Finland, and the United Kingdom, suggested the trend was no longer moving in the same direction. In some populations, average IQ scores leveled off. In others, they declined. The changes weren't large enough to conclude that humanity was becoming less intelligent, but they were consistent enough to challenge an assumption that researchers had accepted for decades. At first, the explanation seemed obvious. Technology should have made us mentally stronger, but the evidence pointed somewhere else. And that's when researchers began asking a very different question. Not whether we had access to more information than previous generations, but whether we had quietly changed the way we use our brains. As researchers searched for answers, one pattern kept resurfacing. Memory was changing. Not because the human brain had become less capable, but because everyday life no longer demanded the same kind of remembering. A few decades ago, forgetting a phone number or the route to an unfamiliar place could leave you stranded. Today, that same information is only a tap away. And that's a profound shift. Technology hasn't just made information easier to access. It's changing the moment your brain decides whether something is worth remembering. Study after study revealed the same pattern. When people expected information to stay available, they were less likely to store it in memory. Instead, they remembered where to find it. Psychologists call this cognitive offloading. The brain isn't getting weaker. It's simply sharing part of its workload with external tools. Humans have always done this, using notebooks, calculators, and other inventions to reduce mental effort. The difference today is that those tools are with us every moment. Your phone remembers directions, stores passwords, keeps conversations, sets reminders, and even helps write your messages. So the real change isn't that your brain is doing less, it's learning to work differently. And that raises a much bigger question. If your brain no longer needs to remember everything, what is it becoming better at? Try reading just one page of a book without checking your phone. For many people, that's harder than it used to be. Not because they've forgotten how to read, but because their attention has learned to expect something new every few seconds. Look at the digital world around you. One video ends, another begins automatically. You open an app to reply to one message, and 20 minutes disappear. Every swipe, every notification, every recommendation competes for one thing: your attention. The more often that cycle repeats, the more your brain adapts to it. This is called neuroplasticity. Your brain is constantly reshaping itself around the habits you repeat. That's why repetition builds every skill, from learning a language to playing an instrument. Attention works the same way. If your day is filled with constant switching between messages, videos, and headlines, your brain becomes exceptionally good at switching focus. But there's a cost. The less it practices staying with one idea, the harder deep concentration can feel. Researchers call this attention residue. Even after returning to a task, part of your attention remains stuck on what interrupted you. So focused thinking feels harder, even when your brain is functioning exactly as it should. It isn't failing, it's adapting. The real question is, what is it adapting to? Compare a normal day today with one 40 years ago. The biggest difference isn't intelligence. It's what the world expected from the brain. Leaving home once meant carrying directions, phone numbers, and important details in your memory. If something went wrong, you relied on experience, experimentation, or another person. Those weren't memory exercises. They were simply everyday life. Memory, attention, and problem-solving were built into daily routines. Modern life has changed that. Today, information is almost always within reach. Instead of remembering, we retrieve. Instead of navigating, we follow. Instead of wrestling with a problem, we often search for the answer. These changes make life faster and far more convenient. But every shortcut also shapes what the brain practices most. Over time, it becomes better at the habits it repeats. That's why comparing generations misses the bigger picture. This isn't about one generation having a better brain than another. It's about growing up in completely different environments that rewarded different mental habits. Your brain is already changing. The only question is, what are you training it to become? Here's the part that changes everything. Everything you've heard so far leads to one conclusion. Your brain isn't resisting modern life, it's adapting to it. That's what brains do. Every habit you repeat makes that pattern a little stronger. The brain doesn't judge whether a habit is good or bad, it simply becomes more efficient at what you practice most. Spend your time jumping between notifications, messages, and short videos, and rapid task switching starts to feel natural. Spend that same time reading, solving difficult problems, or learning a new skill, and your brain strengthens those abilities instead. This change doesn't happen overnight. It happens gradually, through weeks, months, and years of repetition. Neuroscientists describe it simply: the pathways you use most often grow stronger over time. That means your brain improves at whatever it practices most. So, difficulty concentrating doesn't necessarily mean your brain is failing. More often, it's reflecting the environment you've trained it in. And if repetition created those patterns, repetition can reshape them. The brain that learned these habits can learn better ones. And that's where the story becomes hopeful. Most changes in the brain don't announce themselves. You notice them indirectly. You unlock your phone to check the weather. 10 minutes later, you've forgotten why you picked it up. You start reading an interesting article. A notification appears. By the time you return, your train of thought has disappeared. Those moments seem small. The pattern isn't. Your brain isn't choosing to become more distracted. It's adapting to the behaviors you repeat most often. That's how habits quietly reshape attention. But the same process can work in your favor. Stay with a difficult chapter a little longer. Work through a problem before searching for the answer. Each time, you strengthen a different set of mental pathways. These changes are almost invisible from one day to the next, but over months and years, they become impossible to ignore. That's why this conversation was never really about smartphones, social media, or artificial intelligence. Those are only tools. The real story is about the routines that shape your mind. Because every repeated action is a vote for the brain you're becoming. And those votes add up every single day.
So, are we actually less intelligent than our grandparents? The evidence doesn't give a simple answer. Researchers have observed changes in IQ scores while our lives have become more digital and more connected than ever before. But the bigger question isn't whether intelligence has declined. It's how we've redistributed it. We remember fewer phone numbers because our devices remember them. We rely on maps instead of memorizing routes. Almost any fact is only seconds away. Those are remarkable advantages, but every convenience also changes what the brain practices. When remembering becomes optional, we remember less. When deep focus becomes rare, it takes more effort. The brain isn't making a mistake. It's adapting to the world around it. And that's the real takeaway. Technology doesn't shape your mind by simply existing. Your daily habits do. Every time you pause to think instead of searching immediately, or stay with an idea instead of chasing the next distraction, you're training your brain, one choice at a time. Because the habits you repeat today don't just shape what you know tomorrow. They shape how you think tomorrow. And that may be the most important difference of all. Our grandparents didn't grow up in a better world. They grew up in a different one. The demands on the brain were different. Today, we have more information than any generation before us. The real challenge is deciding what deserves our attention. Technology has given us extraordinary tools, but the habits we build while using them shape the way we think. Because intelligence isn't just about finding answers, it's also about slowing down, questioning easy answers, and thinking before reaching for a screen.
Your brain is adapting every single day. The only uncertainty is what it's adapting to. And that answer is written one habit at a time. So maybe the better question was never, are we dumber? It's, what kind of mind are we building?